Welcome to the Hollywood Persona Podcast. Here are your hosts, Mitch and Ant.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to THP, the Hollywood Persona. I am here, as always, with my co-host, Ant, and I am Mitch Burns. Ant, how's it going today?
Great, Mitch. Glad to see you in good health. I know you have been sick.
Yeah, I think we were going to do, probably like last week, we were going to try to get together, and then I was just in bed for 2 days straight, like sleeping and then feeling like crap. I finally got out to the theater last night to see Captain America.
Cool.
So that is one we are going to talk about today, as well as, since I was in bed, I caught up with some Oscar ones that you probably saw months ago.
Maybe.
Sing Sing, which is nominated for Best Picture, and Nickel Boys, which is also nominated for Best Picture. So we're going to talk about those. And then I'm just going to briefly bring up Maria, which I saw, Angelina Jolie's Oscar-nominated movie, not Best Picture, but we'll get to that. And then you are going to talk about No Other Land, which is the Oscar-nominated documentary, which I have not had a chance to see. I don't know if or when I'll be able to see that one.
Yep. Who knows?
This is kind of the mad rush, right?
February
before... And, you're just trying to cram as much in as you can. If you're like us, if you are like the kind of person who likes to watch as many of the Oscar-nominated movies as they can. But then there's new movies coming out. And January isn't as much of the dumping ground as it used to be. We have a big Marvel Captain America movie right in February, right? Beginning of February. And that's usually not the case. And we've got...
They did it with Black Panther.
Did they?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like the last 5 years or 10 years or so, it's gotten a little bit better. It's not usually... It is a dumping ground. Like we were actually just talking about...
But no, you're right.
Like Love Hurts and Love Me with Kristen Stewart. You saw that one. And I hadn't even heard of it. It's Kristen Stewart and Stephen Young.
I know. Just the way movies gets released today is like it was always a mystery, and now it's even more of a mystery with streaming.
Yeah,
being a part of the equation.
Exactly.
But then Companion was very well liked. That was a January release, but it didn't make that much money, unfortunately. And so when you hear people say, "Oh, why do they only make remakes and sequels?" Because not many people went to see Companion.
Yeah,
that's just the truth of the matter. So yeah.
And then, have you ever seen My Bloody Valentine? Like, there's the original and the remake.
No.
Because that's why when I saw the Hard Eyes trailer, I was like, oh, I didn't know they were making a My Bloody Valentine remake. So to me,
there's not many horror Valentine's movies.
No, and horror's so big now that they're really trying to, cash in on every holiday and all that.
Yeah, and once you get to seeing Hard Eyes, I think we should review it because there's a lot to talk about there. The people that make it and produce it are people that make and produce other movies that we like, other horror recent. So once you get to it, and it's short, it's like an hour and a half. So we'll get to that one.
This episode could be very horror filled because I'm going to watch Companion. I'm going to try to see The Monkey, which comes out this weekend, and I am going to see Hard Eyes as well. The more I feel better, the more I'm going to go see. So sorry if I'm a little sniffly, but why don't you hit us with how the box office was over the President's Day long weekend?
Yeah, sure. So this, it's kind of been all eyes on the box office because Marvel has a new movie and they're, the dominating force in box office these days, what with their 35 movies over the last 2 decades, but also with Deadpool and Wolverine being such a massive hit. Lots of people were interested. So the movie did well. It didn't bomb. It didn't exceed expectations crazily. It just did just fine, pretty good. Over the 3-day, it made $88 million. Over the 4-day, it opened to $100 million, which again is good. Good opening, solid.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting to see its drop, right? Like if it hits, 70% or more, to get us something like what's their recent like the Marvels. The Marvels had a bad 70+% droppage weekend over weekend, or it could do well. But what, another news story is the cinema score is the lowest cinema score that a Marvel movie has ever gotten, which is so crazy because we'll get into it in the review. I wouldn't say this is the worst Marvel movie by a long shot.
No.
But it got a B- cinema score. And yeah, that's lower than any other Marvel movie has ever gotten. So,
which isn't, you don't think it's crazy low, but is pretty low for a popcorn type movie when it comes to cinema score. Because cinema score, if you don't know, is the general public kind of voting. And there is like historically only like 8 or 9 Fs that have ever
20, yeah.
Oh, 20, okay. Which is,
but they've been doing it for 40 years or something.
Yeah, that's millions of movies, or thousands. And, so, yeah. But.
Yeah, and you only see low scores on movies that perform well for horror. Horror, you kind of take away from cinema score because a horror movie can get a C+ and still make tons of money. So it's not the best metric for horror movies. But for everything else, it is an interesting, it kind of is a metric for two things. First is how good the movie will continue to do word of mouth, legs wise.
Mm-hmm.
If it has A+, that usually means crowds liked it and want to tell their friends and say, you got to go see this.
Mm-hmm.
Other thing that it's useful for is expectations. So how well was the marketing? And here's why I think Brave New World got the B- that it did, is because I think the trailers and things gave away so much that the people were like, oh, we're going to see this, this, and this. And like, well, the trailer gave basically the third act is in this trailer, The main reveal is in the trailer.
Yeah.
So I think that has an impact on people tearing the card to say, yeah, that's a B movie, B-ish,
I think I guess we can, I don't know if there's more to say. You talk about that and we'll get into it.
Yeah, and then we'll get into the movie. So then the only other thing box office related I wanted to say was Heart Eyes increased week over week by like 10%, which is just really rare. And you just so rarely see it. It's never done. For a wide release. For a movie like Brutalist that's slowly rolling out to more and more theaters, yes, that will increase its percentage from week over week, obviously, because it's in more places. But a movie like Hard Eyes that was fully wide released 2 weekends ago, to increase the amount it's done is impressive. So, yeah, people like that movie.
Yeah, it definitely has a high score, so that's good.
Yeah. And I liked it too, and we'll review it when we get to it. It's a good like, if you're like horror slasher, it's a great, like perfectly fine, fun movie to see as a date or as someone wanting to go see a horror movie. That's Hard Eyes. So yeah, other than that, for the box office, there's not much more news there to talk about. I think we should move into our main review of Captain America: Brave New World.
Yeah.
You ready?
I am. I'm totally ready. So, Captain America: Brave New World is technically the 4th Captain America movie, but it is not Steve Rogers. We now have the shield passed on to Anthony Mackie, who plays Sam Wilson, or Captain America now. Before, he played Falcon, obviously. There is a new Falcon in this movie. This movie also stars Harrison Ford, Danny Ramirez, Shira Haas, Tim Blake Nelson, and then I always know
Giancarlo
Esposito, who everybody will know from Breaking Bad, and he's been in so many movies lately.
Liv Tyler.
I think that's it. Yeah. See, they kind of put that in the poster, in the trailers and stuff, that she's in it, but she's really not, and it's almost like a spoiler.
Yeah.
And I do think we should get into spoilers, and we will let the viewers know when we do get there, so you can skip ahead. So yeah, so this follows Anthony Mackie's Captain America. He is slowly trying to figure out how to be Captain America after Steve Rogers, and he meets up with the President of the United States, played by Harrison Ford. He is playing President Thaddeus Ross. Thaddeus Ross was played by William Hurt in all of the previous movies. Unfortunately, William Hurt passed away in 2022, so Harrison Ford took over, which I think is another confusing thing for
It was
people.
For me.
Yeah, because William Hurt has been playing this character since the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk, which is technically in the MCU, and this is technically a direct sequel to.
And also a sequel to the series.
Yeah, so this movie has a lot viewers who are not intense Marvel fans, or if you haven't seen The Incredible Hulk from 2000
8,
and
which I
you
haven't.
have, I have, and if you haven't seen the Eternals,
I have.
which a lot of people didn't love, and if you haven't seen the TV show,
Which I haven't.
the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, sorry, geez, that's a tongue tie for me, I guess. You may be a little lost because,
Which I was.
yeah, which is a really weird thing to do when you're trying to introduce a new kind of character like this.
Yeah.
You're really setting yourself up for failure when you ask your audience to remember a movie from 2008 and 8-episode TV show that not everyone really loved. I did see it and I don't remember much from it. Like, it had Bucky Barnes and
Right.
Sam Wilson, and a lot of this carries over. The Isaac character in this movie, played by Carl Lumbly, he is carried over from the TV show. And there's a whole storyline in the TV show about there being other super soldiers that were mainly black and used in like the Vietnam War and stuff.
Yep.
Which was an interesting idea. And the TV show did an okay job, but it kind of fumbled it. And then carrying that story over to here, like, it didn't have the same emotional resonance that the TV show was able to carve out. The TV show had way too much going on. It also had super soldiers who could blow up, and they were people who enjoyed, who think things were better during the blip. Like saying that, okay, we missed the blip because half the people were dead and we should go back to that. And it's like, there was some interesting stuff there. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling now.
That's all right. I think that's indicative of what the movie is.
Exactly. Like, the movie is, well, why don't you chat about it for a bit and then we'll...
All right. So, yeah, I didn't like this. I saw this on Thursday night. So before there were really any reviews out, just a couple had come out and they were pretty down the middle. So I was thinking I might enjoy it, might get something out of it, but it really didn't work for me very much at all. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've decided I didn't like it because of, first thing you said already was the confusing characters that are in this that I don't know about. So not having seen the Hulk from 2008 and not having seen the series, I was first like, well, wait, okay, so he's already... So last I knew this character, he was just handed the shield from Cap.
Yes.
And now he's been a soldier for a while. Like, I would have loved to have seen... And why did he choose to take this role? And was there any friction between, being a black Captain America after there was a white one? There's got to be some good storytelling there.
And that's what the show got into.
And I guess that's what's in the show.
Which was kind of interesting. I don't think they did it well enough, but I think it was interesting.
And that leads me to my second point that was disappointing with the movie. It feels like it's not really saying much. It very is taking a both sides or have good people on both sides. Can't we all just get along type approach? Like it doesn't have it's not skewering any political message in one way or another. You don't have to do that, but to me that feels like, oh, of course, they want both conservative and liberal people to enjoy this movie, and they want Chinese, and they want all markets to be able to like it. Like, for example, in the movie, we are at war with, or about to go to war with, a couple of other countries that they were kind of random. Japan and France, I think, are mentioned, and
Japan, and then they had Paris on there, and then they had Italy, I think.
Yeah,
was the other one. It was like three really weird. No,
yeah,
weird,
I'm like, wouldn't there be feuding with, say, Russia, China, the usual suspects kind of thing, or something from the Middle East? So that kind of felt like out of nowhere. So yeah, it was a big letdown. I do think Harrison Ford did great, and I liked his acting. For him being 82, for me not loving his last Indiana Jones movie, I think he doesn't just mail this performance in. I was like, wow, okay,
No.
he's okay.
I think in his older years, he has. I think we've always seen him as a popcorn actor, kind of. And I think in the last 10 years or so, everything he's been in, he's tried.
Yeah,
And he had a recent interview on like the press circuit for this movie, talking about the failure of the last Indiana Jones.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, and he went on to say was very sad about that, and it actually really bummed him out.
Wow.
He really liked the script. He said he put his whole heart and soul into it, and I think you and I kind of enjoyed the movie to a degree.
Yeah, I remember thinking it was fine.
Yeah, like better than Crystal Skull for sure.
Yes.
So he actually like was discussing how upset he was, and it was an interesting.
And back to him, the trailer shows him. I normally avoid trailers for a massive marketing machine like Marvel. It's hard to completely because it's everywhere. And yeah, because I see a lot of movies in theaters, and because I work in a theater, so I see posters and standees and stuff. We from the trailer, so it's not a spoiler. It shows that he becomes or turns into, or the Red Hulk makes an appearance at some point.
Yeah.
And for them to have shown that in the trailer, and then we see that in the last 15 minutes of the movie.
It's really the pinnacle, the end, and it's kind of a battle throughout, and like with Harrison Ford's character, and I think at some point you would have understood because we know what it was like for the Hulk with the eyes and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like this struggle, and it was kind of a mystery throughout the movie what was going on with but I think this movie was just trying to do whatever it could to get people in the
seats. That's exactly what the marketing was like, we got to get people to come see this, so show the ending. And then speaking of him and being villainous, we also have this character played by Tim Blake Nelson, who is like, well, is he really the villain? Like, so we have two villains. Mm-hmm. We don't get nearly enough with him to know much of his motivations. There's so much exposition in the movie.
Yeah.
And when characters are on screen, a lot of times, even in the first scene, they're just explaining their background to us, and we're not seeing it.
Yeah.
And that was, to me, I was like, oh, that's a bad sign. But again, they're trying to do so much, right? Apparently, he was the villain from the Incredible Hulk.
He actually was like, yes, he was kind of the villain, but more Harrison Ford's character, Thaddeus Ross, played by William Hurt in that one.
Right.
He was more the villain, and that's why you hear through the movie that his daughter, Betty Ross, played by Liv Tyler in the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie. That movie actually famously has a stinger, or what do you call it, end credit scene with Iron Man actually at the end. That
must have been right before Iron Man then.
It was, and it was really interesting. Iron Man walks into a bar and walks up to Thaddeus Ross and is talking to him. So that was like the first kind of end credits scene. I detoured again.
Yeah, but what's Tim Blake Nelson's character called? The mind, or the leader?
Samuel Stearns, but is the character's name, but
I think he's known as the leader from the comic books, right?
Yeah, I'll look that up.
I think I heard that. Another problem is like his character supposedly can do calculations super fast, almost like a Mentat from Dune. But he's constantly wrong. Like he's like, I have a 78% chance of this happening, and he seems to just show up. Like he just walks in places. How did he get from place to place?
Yeah, I think he is a microcosm of the reshoots they did. We
must have been
many issues about reshoots with this movie, and I
heard that
most of his scenes were the reshoots and stuff, and adding them in. I don't know. People have said that they found the reshoots very obvious. I didn't necessarily, but to me, reshoots seem like a bad sign most of the time, especially when they delay a movie like this.
Yeah, this was supposed to come out like April or May of 24, so it was delayed almost a year.
Yeah.
And then back, like still keeping with villains, there's the and Danny Ramirez is really goofy. The new Falcon.
Yeah, he is basically the only character carried over from the TV show. So you do get to know
Okay.
him a little bit more in the TV show besides the Isaiah
Bradley
character. So I mean, he's goofy. I mean, he might work as like a background character in like when the whole Avengers are together maybe.
Yeah.
But in this he is kind of Bucky to Sam's Captain America, and
we don't need him.
No, we don't.
We could use just Sam, or Sam could, for all the scenes that he's talking to him, Sam could have been talking to Isaiah Bradley or Giancarlo Esposito.
Or this new girl, which I did like.
Yeah, or the new girl. That's the next point I was going to make. Shira Haas, she plays Ruth. Apparently, like, the camera focuses on her like, oh, she might be the bad guy early on. And I guess she's supposedly one of the Black Widows, but she doesn't. She's only in the movie. She's not in the movie long enough. And this is just a minor thing, and it happens in movies. She's literally like 5'3", 98 pounds, and she's like taking on these super soldiers with ease. I rolled my eyes up. I'm like, come on here. Did you notice that at all?
She's a widow. I mean, no.
She's a small widow.
And so is Florence Pugh. I mean, she's a widow as well.
I guess.
I'm not,
like
not defending it.
Florence and Scarlett I can see as probably capable fighting. This actress, I was just like, come on, like even I could probably kick her ass, you know?
It did distract me because she weighs probably 120
She's
pounds.
really tiny.
Yeah, you like the camera cannot hide it.
Right.
How tiny she is.
Yeah. Sam's suit, it has vibranium, which is cool. But it didn't, I don't know. It just, that's mentioned, and I don't know. That would have been like, it maybe could have been cool if we saw how he got it, why they gave it to him. Unless, was that in the series?
I don't remember it being in this. Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, there was a Wakandan princess, or what are they? Probably not. No, like a warrior, but she was one with the bald head. She did show up in the series because they
helped Bucky, right? The Wakandans?
Yeah, they helped Bucky get rid of his being brainwashed, and they built his arm. So I think that's what they said in this movie, is that they helped his suit with the vibranium. I mean, that didn't bother me so much because I could see Shuri doing that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw the purple, I knew immediately because we saw that in Black Panther's suit.
Yep.
In Infinity War.
Yep.
Which is me being completely nerdy, I know, and I got excited.
I only bring it up just to say, like, it would have been nice to see the coming together of the Wakandans and Sam, you know, like, because, you know, being both of them being black and maybe having similar experiences, that's good, like, character growth stuff.
And that's what this movie needed, and instead it needed to be its own thing, and instead it tried to build up from the past. And I think it tried to do things that some MCU fans have wanted. It wanted answers to the Eternals and what's going on with that giant Celestial that came out
5 years ago.
Yeah, it's wanted answers to what happened, you know, Betty Ross and Tim Blake Nelson's character, but like, this wasn't the movie to do that in. Those are things they should have done. Or they had just too many of those little things because there's if you were to write down all this things on like what this is about or describe each character, there's just way too much here to do in 2 hours. This should have been the TV show, right? Like almost, right? And then have, if they were gonna do a TV show, but I just, let's get into spoilers and we'll do our review. I mean, our ratings. What'd you get stars? Out of 5, I gave this a 1.5. And wow, okay. Yeah, and I don't really have a strong reason why it wouldn't be a 2 or a 1, because I really just didn't like it. There's not much I like. I do like Anthony Mackie as an actor. I think he holds the screen well enough, and I did like Harrison Ford. But that's about it. There is one, I think, pretty great action scene. It involves airplanes, warships. I thought that was kind of cool. I was hoping that bumped it up a star for me. I really, really enjoyed that battle. It felt It was tense.
Yep.
And it felt almost Top Gun Maverick-y because there was two sides fighting against each other, and there was a good side, and well, actually, they kind of both were enemies, but there was a miscommunication. It was really interesting. Kind of reminded me of almost like the old sub movies where it's like tense,
like Crimson Tide.
Yeah, like something like that. And you're like, so that was cool. I did like the final fight scene, even though it was predicted. I thought the way, well, okay, so we're going to get into spoilers.
Yeah, so let's move over to spoilers.
I'm 3 stars on this movie at this moment.
Okay, good.
Because I can see myself even kind of like, I'm kind of predicting that I will see this movie better in the future. And I also did see the TV show, and I did see the 2008 Hulk, and it did more for me. But I can also see why somebody would absolutely hate this if they weren't so Marvel-fied like I am.
Right. Yeah, and
Sorry.
I think, this was something else I wanted to bring up. I don't have the numbers in front of me to back up, but before we get to spoilers, I'll just mention it. The demographic breakdown of the movie was interesting. Mostly men, mostly older.
Right.
So
like our age and older?
Yeah, like our age and older. So I think people our age have grown up. Anyone who watched movies in the last 15 years have aged with them. And I think this movie might appeal well to someone who is 9 to, 16 or something that doesn't care so much about plot, characters, just want to see cool, crazy action scenes and Hulks. So yeah, I meant to pull the demographic numbers, so maybe I'll make a point to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we can get to spoilers if you want to.
Okay. I can't remember what I was going to say about spoilers now.
I can start us off then.
Okay.
I think the post-credit scene was useless and such a waste.
Such a waste of time. And why didn't they put it after the first?
Why wasn't it a mid-credit scene? So for those who haven't seen, who don't care, post-credit scene is just the guy with the bubbles on his head, Tim Blake Nelson, saying basically like we've seen in the Morbius one and a whole bunch of other ones saying, or Batman v Superman. Remember that one? It was Eisenberg in jail saying he's coming.
Yes.
Ding ding ding. Once you ring the bell.
I can't believe Marvel would put this in a movie. Like it's but I can also see why they did it, because it's so fucking vague that if what they put, you know what I mean, then because they've gotten in trouble recently for putting things like Harry Styles at the end of Eternals.
Or Kang at the end of Ant-Man.
Right. And so they've gotten in trouble for these things, saying like, well, when are we going to see that again? And so this one is just Tim Blake, sorry to cut you off, but it's Tim Blake Nelson just saying, he's coming.
Someone's coming. Someone's
coming. And it's like,
even though we're about to see Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, you can't lead us. Yeah. That's how they used to do it. It was a tease for what's coming next, and those are coming next. Why not?
And it always should be. Kind of like how Pixar puts in little things to, hint you about the next movie, and it's always the next movie, and it's an Easter egg that you find out later, but it's always about their next adventure. And I mean, I think Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four look good. They could be very interesting. We'll see. But yeah, so the Isaiah Bradley character, it felt very ham-fisted, and the way it was, he shoots he tries to shoot the president, and then there's this whole search into why he did it, and that's how we end up finding Tim Blake Nelson eventually, and it's all very obvious. From the beginning that Isaiah's innocent, and there's mind control going on. It's just obvious.
And him, a former criminal black man tries to shoot the president, and they just are like, "Hey, put the gun down. We're gonna arrest you." No, he would have been shot dead immediately.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's again, this movie has no teeth to say anything. They're not there's quite a bit of politics right now that could be commented on. And Marvel, why is this movie called Brave New World? Tell me one thing in this movie that is brave or new.
I mean, the thing they could have commented on is that it's a brave new world, being like a black, superhero, and but
they could have.
Okay, so here's what I really liked, that they took chances with this movie, going to the Celestial Island and then they basically destroy the White House, which is kind of interesting to see. You don't see too many movies doing that.
Yeah,
but...
the White House gets destroyed. Go ahead.
No, I was done.
The White House gets destroyed, and the president turns into a giant red monster. And there's no Hulk, there's no Avengers, there's no Marvels.
Yeah.
Which I know that's a thing with these movies, but I had that thought. I'm like, the president of the United States changes into a red monster that looks like the Hulk, and we get Sam.
Yeah, and one interesting thing that we're going to see so Bucky's in this is basically the big spoiler. Bucky does show up, which I was saying.
I guess that is a spoiler, but I was so expecting it. I'm like,
me too.
Yeah, of course.
Because they had a whole TV show together, and they've been buddy ever since they were kind of, not buddies and kind of hated each other at the beginning because they were both best friends with Steve Rogers, and it's like they were like jokey enemies.
Yeah.
And then they had a whole TV show together, and I'm like, if he's not in it, but he also is only just in it for like a minute.
Yep.
And I do think it was a little impactful, like in a way, like it kind of, but it also brought us back to what this movie should have been. It should have been, Sam Wilson, trying to be on his own, and he was a part of the Avengers, and
yeah.
So there should have been more of a connection to the Avengers, like the immediate past and the Avengers, and the future, not Incredible Hulk and the Eternals,
and the show, or
right,
I guess
in the show. But like, it should have been its own thing.
Imagine if they took out Falcon that we have in this movie, and it was just Bucky that was with him and his side character,
helping him. It would have been so much better. And I think someone probably said, okay, well, we need Sam Wilson to do his own thing. And instead of having like a white guy, we need to have this Mexican guy be his sidekick.
Right.
People would be upset if it was a white guy like Bucky. We need a Mexican guy. And then I don't even know if we really touched on it, but every villain in this movie survives. Right. Giancarlo Esposito, Tim Blake Nelson, and Harrison Ford all survive.
No guts.
They all are put in prison at the end. It is interesting to see Thaddeus Ross put in the Raft, which is the prison they have, which I think is really cool. And that's where, at the end of
we see Liv Tyler
Civil
on a green
War.
Screen.
Yeah. Oh, was she? I didn't really know.
I don't think she was ever in the same room as
Thaddeus, as Harrison
Thaddeus,
Ford.
yeah. And like Thaddeus is supposedly redeemed after this, but he did some horrible things. Someone told me that in the show, the Captain America show, someone killed someone else with the shield. And like that would be something to see in this movie.
Exactly. And so I'll Marvel nerd you for a second. In the show, the shield goes to someone else, a man named John Walker, a white guy. And that is what, like, you know what I mean? So it's like they can't see Sam Wilson as, and that's where Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character comes in. She is like, managing all this. She says, no, this man needs to be our Captain America. He's going to have the shield. And, Sam Wilson's kind of like, whatever, if that's who they want, he kind of gives it up. And then he needs to be talked back into, no, Steve Rogers wanted you to be.
Yeah.
And then this John character, who we see in Thunderbolts, he's going to be in the Thunderbolts as kind of another Captain America, or they call him the U.S. soldier or something. And he recorded on video smashing a guy in the head with his shield.
Yeah, like that would be cool to see in this movie.
It was a very shocking moment, and would have been, that whole arc would have been really cool. And this movie kind of slows the whole movie down to try to give you those moments. Like, it'll all of a sudden be like, but like, you're not Steve Rogers. Like, there's like little things like that, right? It's like, and then that leads nowhere. There's no, it's not like Sam Wilson has a, he doesn't think about it. He's like, okay, whatever, I'm not. It's just, it's odd.
Yeah. There's just so many better ways they could have done this.
Yeah.
And
I
the
think
post-credit scene.
see that.
Post-credit scenes leaves me deflated. Like, okay, sure. Well, Yeah, didn't like it. Did not like it. Um,
Mhm.
hope I don't have really any expectations or feelings about the next Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four. I hope they're good. I've
Me
liked a
too.
lot of Marvel movies, so I should be able to like some of these. But I guess like final thought I would say is they might have outdone themselves with having too much
Yeah.
with the shows and stuff now. We used to just have one movie a year, 2 movies a year, maybe even 3, but they connected. But now there's so much material that's trying to
Mhm.
be interconnected because they try to grow and expand and make 5 movies a year and 3 shows. And I think their grasp outdoes their reach. I think this is a
Sorry.
this is a reminder of that.
And I have to say, I think Marvel has come out and said that they've recognized that. And I think going forward, that will start to change. I think Thunderbolts may be like the last carryover from like the TV show, but it hopefully will be enough of its own thing. And then
Yeah.
I think Fantastic Four is going to start its whole new thing. The last thing I'm going to say, yes, that end credit scene awful, but I think it's hinting at Fantastic Four
What
because
about okay? But I think it's hinting at X-Men because they said the word
yes,
adamantium in this movie.
right. So adamantium is brought into this movie with the celestial being made out of adamantium, and that's where the conflict comes in between the different countries, as they all want it.
Yeah.
But I think he says like, what happens when there's another world that like Earth,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Yeah.
I think that's hinting at the X-Men coming in, which we saw in the end credit sequence of the Marvels.
Right.
And we see this Fantastic Four. They are technically mutants, I think. They're classified as like mutants, which the X-Men are. So I think what he's saying is he's setting up the Fantastic Four and how that's going to be a different world and it's going to collide. Because if we see that movie, it's clearly in like a futuristic kind of 60s with robot and
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't make sense that Fantastic Four would be in our world, and why haven't we heard about
True.
them
True.
lately? So I think we'll see some sort of connection there, but it also was just still a silly
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
All right.
yeah, let's. That was a long conversation, but
It was.
I get nerdy about these things, so
No, there was a lot to talk about though.
yeah, I think there was. And sometimes when a movie is not great, you can only think about what you wish it was.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah. So let's talk about Sing Sing if
Yep.
that's all right with you. Do you want to set it up
Yeah, I
or
can take
okay.
this one. I actually
Okay.
was looking because of your comment before about I probably saw this months ago. I actually saw this August 13th.
Oh my
Isn't that
gosh.
crazy? But
Mhm.
that's not necessarily your fault. This movie had the weirdest,
It did.
slowest rollout, and I think A24 kind of messed it up by doing that. Messed up its awards prospects. So Greg Queter directed this,
Mhm.
and I don't know him from anything else,
Okay.
but it mainly stars Coleman Domingo and Clarence Macklin. They're kind of the two mains. There's probably 8 or 9 people that are a part of this little acting troupe. It
But
also
some
has Paul Raci
yes.
from
Sound of Metal.
Sound of Metal, yeah. And it's kind of funny. This isn't the same movie as Sound of Metal, but like I could watch them both together.
He has a similar role,
Yeah,
like as
similar
the
role.
yeah.
He's like the group discussion leader kind of guy.
Yeah. The other people in this movie are mainly acted by a lot of them are actual reformed prison.
Yes.
Sorry, how do you say that? It's they were prisoners and now they have become actors or tried to become actors.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah,
that's
so
interesting.
Sing Sing is you're following the character of Divine G, and he is imprisoned at Sing Sing, the name of the prison, for a crime that he didn't commit. But he finds purpose by acting in this theater group alongside the other incarcerated men, and the story is supposed to be all about resilience, humanity, and how art can save you or save some people, right? So The prisoners are allowed to put on this play each year, I think.
Yeah,
And
every 6 months, he said,
every 6 months.
we do, like, I remember him, I've seen it obviously like 2 days ago.
Right. You saw it more recent, yeah.
So,
but they take it, because this is the only thing the prisoners have, or one of the only things, they take this very, very seriously.
yeah.
And, they decide who's going to play each role, what movie or what script they're going to use,
Mhm.
And, your behavior has to be good to be kept on. And it's just, it's a very like real and extremely heartwarming story about being a prisoner, being alive, or being, imprisoned. Whether you committed the crime or not, that's part of this drama here, because this guy apparently didn't commit the crime he was committed for. And it's just fantastic. And like you said, the acting is done by a lot of the actual people who were imprisoned, which I didn't know going in. And so watching, I was like, wow, these guys are really good. Or they look, they look like prisoners, not like beautiful actors. So I was like, watching, like, wow, where'd they get these guys? This is good, like good cast, and then you find out later, oh yeah, okay. So I think the movie's excellent and worth a watch by anyone. But that's about it. That's kind of all I have to say about it. Let me hear your take.
Yeah, so what did you rate it? I know we sometimes grab at that at the end, but
I gave it 4 stars. I thought this is just a very good human story.
So I'm about the same. I think I'm 3.5. I found this to be very standard story up until a little bit into the second act, when some major character changes happen and it becomes very, very interesting. I won't spoil anything, but you kind of have one character who is very motivational, and he's trying to make people happier and see the good in people and bring that out in people. And then something happens to him, and he kind of turns and becomes someone different. And the person that he was trying to bring that happiness out of is, he starts to become a better person.
Yes.
And you see these different arcs, and that's when the movie really starts to become something different. And so that's why for me, I'm stuck between 3.5 and 4, because the first hour I was kind of like, well, we've seen this.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen this a lot. This is just a prison story, and like they get to do a little bit outside of prison, and there's some people who are trying, but they're not really into it, but,
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But no, this movie really goes places, and took chances that I wasn't expecting because of what came before it. I was really kind of like, really?
Me too.
And then it really changes and brought me really into the movie, which unlike a movie has ever done for me. And yeah, and it took some chances, like, some bad things happen to characters that and not in the way you think. Like, nobody gets shivved. I was waiting for that the whole movie. Nobody gets shivved. Nobody gets murdered. It's not like that kind of prison movie either. It is, like you said, it is a little bit more heartwarming than it is like, they could almost not be in a prison.
Exactly.
It's
and the
more, yeah.
I had a moment like you just described, but mine was different place in the movie, where I was watching. I'm like, okay, prison movie. We've seen this before. These are, it turns out, actually good people, and they, come together to do a good thing. We've seen that Shawshank Redemption, and so on and so on and so on. But the movie the point that where I pivoted and was like, oh, this is cool. This is different than a typical prison movie was. There's a character in here who's still kind of living the street thug life in prison. Mm-hmm. And we see him talking to, and again, I saw this in August. So we see him talking to someone else, and something about like he's moving drugs in the prison, or he's selling cigarettes or something. And he's like, this guy owes me money. And in my head, I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm going to get to see him beat this guy up, stab him, something. But they don't do that at all. Not at all. And I was like, wow, they had restraint to hold back from doing the typical prison violence stuff that we see. And so I thought, okay, no, this is different. All right. So
yeah,
yeah.
I was waiting for that, and then that kind of moment comes full circle later in the movie, and it's not even a scene. It's almost just like a small moment between those two characters, and you can just see that the one character feels bad for having done that earlier, and you're like,
Yes.
wow, okay,
Yep.
that's really intriguing. Like, nothing happens. He doesn't go up and say, I'm sorry, man, and hug it out
Right,
or anything.
right.
He just says, you can just see it in his eyes. And that's why I think Clarence Macklin, who plays Divine Eye, or, he does a really good job. There's only one use of the N-word in this,
Right, yep.
and it is very quickly snuffed out. Coleman Domingo's character says, or Divine G, he says, we call each other beloved in here instead of the N-word.
Yeah.
He was beloved.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's something from real life. I don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because of how much influence the real people had in this. So
Yeah.
it
And
just
a lot of sorry.
watching it, I was just like, man, this shows you how important art is to
Yes.
humans. It sounds like pie in the sky, granola-y, but like art, meaning movies, TV, acting, painting, flower, any form of art that can really have a profound impact on humans, whether
Yes.
they're prisoners or little kids or whatever.
Yes.
And I think that's what this movie's trying to tell. And it told it. And I was like, damn, hell yeah.
And it shows us that we need prison.
Yes.
Reform. We need, you can't just put these people back on the street without any sort of trying to rehabilitate them.
Rehabilitation instead of punitive punishment.
Right.
That's really what we should do. But it's hard and it costs money and all that. But
does. And a lot
it
of
gets
people
results.
say, why are we spending money on people who, are
gave up their
murderers
chance?
or,
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, then it's like Germany after World War I.
Yep.
We fucking beat them down and they came back to fight again. You can't, not that. Anyways, I shouldn't be comparing the two, but it's a little bit. It's a bigger.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's and actually, and this can open a whole other can of worms. But I feel it's a good similar example that since you brought it up, like during World War II when we released the atom bomb, like we pretty immediately rushed in with help and aid.
Yeah.
And I think that's a similar thing here. Someone gets arrested for doing something horrible. We need to rush in with actual things that will maybe get them. Not everyone can be rehabilitated. Not everyone's going to change, but
No.
Some people will. And it's worth it for the ones that do, because then they in turn become a better overall help to society, and society gets better because of it.
And there's that human need to almost like what's the be the gossiper, and you almost want to know what each of these characters are in for,
Yeah,
and you really don't find out. There's little hints, even Divine G, there's little hints that there was something, they do say what he was charged for, but the actual story never even comes to light. You don't really find out, and after a while I was kind of like, that's cool. I don't have these preconceived notions about what these individuals did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not judging them on that. And,
Right.
I'm not saying, well, no, he should be in prison longer. I'm thinking about it as, no, this person seems like he's a good person and he should probably be back out, parole or house arrest or something, because he's got 3 kids. He seems like he's reformed and
he's making an effort.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a really thoughtful movie. I'm 4 stars.
Me too.
I think it deserves a Best Picture nomination.
Yep.
I didn't think it did for the first hour, or maybe not hour, but it took me a while.
Yeah, it's great. It's a good movie, and you can watch it. Anyone can watch it, really. It's not it's not a brutal, hard watch.
Just don't give up on it, because I think there's a lot of character stuff that happens in the last half of the movie that really pulled me in.
All right, you want to talk about Nickel Boys?
Yeah. So oh, that's the one I didn't pull up. I'm sorry.
I got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so Nickel Boys, directed by Romel Ross, came out in 2024. It did some made some major noise at on the festival circuit. So the story itself, to distill it down, is pretty basic. It gives us the chronicles of a friendship between 2 young black men living through the harrowing trials of this. Speaking of prison, or reform school in Florida. It's set back in the 60s,
Yeah, I think
probably.
it was 60.
And so it's got Ethan Harris, who plays Elwood, and Brandon Wilson, that plays Turner. And the movie is about these two, Elwood and Turner.
Mm-hmm.
And they become best friends.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same age, they're young boys. And then Anjanou Ellis-Taylor is in this, who you would recognize her. She is always a great actress. She was in The Color Purple, Beale Street Could Talk, King Richard. She was also in The Help.
Yeah. Ray.
She was in one of my favorite movies, Ray, about Ray Charles.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. She plays the like prim and proper, like strong black woman character. She's always great. She's always awesome. But she's not in it that much. She's the mother of Elwood, I think, right?
Yes, I think she's like, her scenes are strong, but she isn't in it very much.
Yeah, she has a few scenes. But the inciting incident is unfortunate because the movie opens, and I think this is fine to explain. The movie opens with Elwood. We see him being a promising young man. He's doing good in school. He's on the right track. He doesn't hang out with the bad kids, kind of thing. He's walking between towns or whatever, and a older black man in a nice car sees him walking, pulls over and says, "Hey, let me give you a ride. Where are you going? You need a lift." And the kid, of course, is like, "Okay, sure, yeah, I'm going just 2 miles down that way." Gets in the car, but unfortunately, because it's Florida in the 60s and the man had stolen the car, they get pulled over. He gets implicated just for being there, even though he literally had nothing to do with this crime. But because he's young, he gets sent to a reform school instead of prison. And so here comes my take on the movie. I ended up not loving this movie, and I felt bad that I didn't love it because of its framing device. It's told through POV, and it's a smart idea, and it's, gosh, I guess even executed well, but it was just jarring for me, and it kept taking me out of the movie. And so what I mean is, like, as the character moves left and right, the camera does as well. So you're always looking with him. It's might even call it nauseating. And about halfway through, the movie switches, or maybe a third through, we switch perspectives
to a different character.
So I think if this was told, like, I give them credit for taking the risk. This was ambitious, but I didn't like it. That way of telling just didn't work for me. What did you think of the movie?
Right, I'm kind of right there with you. This is what a lot of people would call a tone poem.
There you go. There's
a lot of lying around in the grass and long images of grasshoppers and fields and fences and and the music and the the sounds of nature. Foley artists are having some fun.
Yep. And this,
And every scene is just very kind of slow, and it seems very awkward. And because of this POV and because of the way it's filmed, you don't get to know the characters well enough.
Exactly.
I had no connection to these two characters. The first bit of it, I kind of was like, okay, I could get used to it. But then when it's the two characters and you're supposed to, you have to make sure you know whose eyes you're in.
And that was confusing for me.
It was, and they have to try to make a point to say, okay, this is Elwood, or this is
Turner,
or the character has to be looking at the other character, right?
Yes.
Because then you're in the eyes of Elwood.
Whereas normally it would be like reverse shot. You'd have two cameras or one facing both, so you know who's talking. But because you're in the eyes of, you're like, wait, who is this guy? And they're both same age, similar looking ish. So that is same hairstyle and stuff. So that makes it.
You don't see like the actors acting. You don't see like what their motives are, how they're reacting to maybe what this person is saying.
Yep.
And like, there's a scene with Elwood, and he meets. I'm not giving anything away. There's nothing really to give away.
I think
the final scene.
I think there is something to give away.
There is,
but we won't do that.
There is a scene with Anjanou Ellis-Taylor.
Where he's hugging him.
Yeah, where Elwood sees her, and I didn't know how Elwood was reacting in that scene. And it was like Anjanou was giving it a good performance. It was a moment we needed, because she was saying how, oh my God, I can't see my boy. like she was acting, and she's acting towards a white wall. Like for all we know, it's like she's acting for us. It's like, yeah, no, it's not even a play, because in a play there's two people, right?
Yeah. And
unless they're talking to the audience. But
and in that scene, the way the camera looks, it looks like he like looks at her butt, and like and maybe he was just, looking at the ground and following it up, but for a split second I was like, is he like checking her out? Like, which would be wildly inappropriate in this situation.
Because he's like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Maybe?
But I don't think that's what the movie was trying to convey. It's just what
No.
came into my mind because
Me
of
too.
where he's looking.
And
so that again,
Ingenue gives him a package to give to Turner, and I read that he was going to steal the package. And
yes,
keep it for
it felt
himself.
that way. Yep.
And I'm like, and then we don't really hear about the package until later.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, and unfortunately, and I hate to say this, I mean, it's a lot of like peacefulness and lying around mixed in with the horrors of being a black child in the Jim Crow era in the early 60s. And I didn't feel that horror. There's some moments obviously where they go out to the shed. I won't say
where they get
more of
disciplined.
that. Yeah. And but I didn't feel like a lot of the times that these characters were unhappy,
Right,
sad,
being mistreated. Yeah,
I think this is one of the worst Oscar-nominated movies in a long time. I'm at 2 stars because I think it's hard for me to give lower because I think they really tried something here.
Yeah,
it's really hard for me to say, like fuck this movie, because of the story and what
right,
it's
and the
about.
subject. Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, right? And I appreciate you being honest, because I think a lot of reviewers, and maybe not, but because of the subject matter, I think a lot of reviewers would be afraid to criticize this, because it's like, oh well, you're talking bad about race or racial, yeah. And no, that is not the problem I have with the movie. In fact, I think if this were told in the typical way, I would have really liked it, because while it was slow, not twist, but there's a turn kind of at the end that I did not see coming. And I was like, wow, damn, that makes this really fascinating.
And there would have been more of a punch if we got to know the characters better.
Yep.
And we didn't.
Yep. So yeah, it's hard to say. So for me, it was a 3, maybe more of a 2.5. But it's really, that rating is strictly reflected in the way they decided to tell the story, not the story or the acting itself. The acting is great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would want more for this. This is a cool story, and it's kind of like loosely based on some true events, but it's not like based on a true story.
Is it?
I looked up a little bit of it. So yeah, that's
just
Nickel
a little
Boys.
Bland. It's a little bland, and like the parts where besides the POV stuff, it's kind of some stuff we've seen before,
right?
And the one thing I will say before we go, talking about other people reviewing it and stuff, this is one of my most liked reviews on Letterboxd in the last year or so. I see a lot of people liking it as time goes on, because people are watching it. I think they think, why didn't I like that? And it's nominated for Best Picture. And then they go on and they see my review at 2 stars, and they click it and they're like, yeah, see, okay, someone agrees, someone understands. So anyways.
Oh, you know what? This hit me. This is a side note, something we were talking about beforehand. My friend that I met who watches movies, this is one he loved, gave 5 stars.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not about it. So yeah, maybe when we talk to him, his name's Andrew, we can get his take on what he loves so much about it. But okay, let's move on to the last one, right?
Yes.
Oh wait, no.
Why don't you just tell us quickly about No Other Land?
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention No Other Land, and then we can do Maria together.
Quickly, yeah.
Okay, so No Other Land is nominated for Best Documentary. Best Documentary.
Yes.
Feature for the 2025 Oscar nomination. So this is directed by Rachel Zor, who is a director I don't know nothing about. It's a collaboration. There's another guy on this as well, Hamdan Balal. It mainly stars Basil Adra. He plays himself in this. And So this is a Palestinian who is living near the West Bank in a village area called Masaf Yada. And it's been there since the 1800s. And as everyone listening to this knows, there is a conflict going on between Israel and Palestinians. And this story is him just documenting what's happening. And what's happening from his perspective here in this movie is the Israelis are coming into this land, which to me looks like a field with some rocks. There's nothing here. This isn't a city. It's not a town. It's just a field where they keep a couple chickens, a couple goats. They have some crappy concrete structures that look like they were newly built. And Israel keeps coming in with this document that says, hey, we seized this land. We need it for training grounds. We're moving you out. And they say you got whatever, some time, a day or a week, or so they give them some time. And then they come back the next time with bulldozers and they just like destroy and flatten all their shit. And they've done this multiple times. They say you can't be here, so they move somewhere else, build something, then they come back and flatten it with bulldozers. And then they don't appear to even use the grounds for training or anything. Like it literally looks, again, from this person's perspective, it looks like it's just them messing with them as bullies because they can. And I watched this and I just felt like the word came to my head, helpless, to where I'm like, there's literally nothing I can do to help these people. I feel for them. I want things to work out, but it's like, I wouldn't even know where to start. And I'm only seeing a single perspective here. There's intersperses some news clips. This guy is interviewed by CNN and some other news organizations. Tony Blair, former PM for London or England or Great Britain, comes, and apparently the street he walked on, they didn't tear down because they didn't want the bad press that they tore down where Tony Blair visited, but all the areas around, they tore it all down. So it just looks bad. It looks bad on Israel's army's part.
So that's something you keep saying is, to me, it seemed like, or it felt like this. So like, you're obviously just saying that because we're seeing one side in this documentary.
Yeah. Just because
do you believe the one side that you're seeing, kind of?
I do believe this side. Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I mean, I do. Yeah. I believe this side.
I know it's hard to say that when you're only seeing one side.
Exactly. This is a topic I know so little about.
Yeah, I know.
I know that people have very strong opinions.
Yes.
Protest every day about this.
We've talked very heavily about what happened with the Scream movies, losing Melissa Barrera and all that.
Exactly.
And we still don't understand it all. Yeah.
So, no, I think, from this and from what I can see, they're just being mean to these people. It looks really bad. And
like a bully.
Like, just leave these poor people. They have nothing. And again, they're not taking up any area. There's no, even from like an American imperialist type, we want their oil, we want their fine metals. There's nothing here. It's just rocks and dirt. And there's a couple scuffles in the movie where one of the soldiers shoots one of the guys, and he of course doesn't make it. He gets treated, and then of course he doesn't live long because he has like no treatment. Like, they're just like the poorest of poor. And I'm just watching this like, God, just leave these people alone, But I understand, from what I can see, is just because I know there's so much more involved, and I just don't know. Like, I don't want to look stupid, and like when the documentary about this movie comes out and there's footage of this kid, building improvised explosives and launching them under tanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. I can see why it was nominated. I think everyone should watch it. It's really short too. I think it's only 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping to see it. It's the one that I think I'm going to really have trouble finding.
Yeah,
for the Oscars, but
it's good. It's very well made. Although I do have one downside. It's a lot of handheld. So if you get nauseous easy, it will make you nauseous.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, what'd you give it?
I gave it 4 out of 5.
So we're going to quickly talk about Maria. It is on Netflix now. It dropped on Netflix in December.
Did I mention this on the pod before?
Not really. You kind of just said you don't have much to say about it.
Okay.
I can see why. This is directed by Pablo Larraín. He was the first Chilean filmmaker to win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. He directed Spencer,
which I love.
Yes, which is Kristen Stewart movie where she played Diana
Diana
Princess
Spencer.
Diana.
Yeah.
And then he also directed Jackie, which I liked
Me
to a
too.
degree. And that is, what is her name? Natalie Portman as
Portman,
Jackie
yeah.
Onassis.
Yeah, so this is like his trilogy on important women, right?
Yes, and I love that. I love to see this director doing like a 3-part
Same.
thing on really important women, and especially ending it with a woman who I didn't know anything about.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? The other thing, sorry, I think it's not just about 3 important women, but 3 important women on the last like days or week of their life, right? Because
Well,
this takes place a week before she passes.
not Jackie didn't know. Jackie
Well,
was
okay, right.
the
Jackie, but
week
Jackie's
after.
took place right after this
Yes. So
assassination.
I guess it is surrounding, all of them are surrounding death.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and this was actually written by Stephen Knight,
Right.
who we know for. Wait, am I thinking of the right Stephen Knight?
Yeah. He did Eastern Promises and Locke.
Yeah, Locke, right? Which
And also
we're a big fan of.
Allied, and he did Burnt, the one where what's his name is a chef.
Oh yeah, Bradley Cooper. Okay.
Yeah, and he
I
also
haven't seen that
wrote
one.
Spencer as well.
Okay.
So yeah, he's got. Oh, and he did Serenity, the crazy batshit movie with
The space movie.
Anne Hathaway and McConaughey.
Yes, that was like kind of interestingly bad.
Yeah, it's one of those you won't believe what is actually going on. And then also The Girl in the Spider's Web. So he's been around.
Stephen Knight is great, and Pablo Larraín is great.
Yep.
Unfortunately, this movie tells the story of Maria Callas. She's a real life woman who does opera. She's really, you hear. So in this movie, they mixed the voices of her, Maria Callas, and Angelina.
Yeah.
Jolie.
Did you say who the lead actress was?
Did I? So it's I did earlier, but it's
Okay,
Angelina Jolie as Maria Callas. And when she sings in the movie, they mixed the voices of Maria Callas and Angelina Jolie, which I had to look up because Angelina Jolie is doing such a great job singing that I couldn't see it being lip syncing,
Right.
And the way her throat and her lips and everything move, you're like, wow, she's nailing this.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell either, actually.
And so it makes sense that she was actually singing. There are a lot of other people in this, but I don't know anyone else that you would recognize. And
Right.
Cody Smith McPhee he's a young filmmaker. He is interviewing her throughout the movie.
Yeah, he was the one from The Power of the Dog.
Yeah, Ender's Game when he was young.
Deadpool 2, Elvis.
Yeah. He's definitely grown up. He's kind of awkward looking now,
Yes,
but
very
he's
awkward.
He's a decent actor, I think. He reminds me a little bit of Barry Keoghan almost, but like skinny.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Good call.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of like Italian people in this movie because they are all Italian, right?
Yeah.
Most of them are Italian.
I think so.
Yeah, so it is about like the last week of her life. We open with like the ambulance taking her dead body away. So that's not giving away anything. You know immediately that she dies in the space of this movie.
Yep.
And essentially, we just wanted to bring it up because we both didn't really like it. We both, unfortunately, found it to be a letdown. I found it to be treading ground we've seen a million times before. It's a woman. She's addicted to pills. She's at the end of her life. She's being interviewed, and
she's pretty miserable and mean to the people around her.
She is, but then she is also like the two people she is like are her family technically because she has no other family.
Yeah.
She like loves, but then she becomes miserable around them, right? Because you're right, yeah, because she has this drug issue.
Yeah, she's got a substance abuse issue.
Yes.
I'm not sure what they are. Quaaludes?
They said it in the movie. They kept
like
saying
a Xanax, a Valium type
or
thing.
Something. But she keeps taking it. She doesn't want to see her doctors. This is in 1970s Paris, it says, but like I thought they were all Italian.
And the nomination for her is for just her?
Actually, she didn't get an Academy Award nomination. It's just Best Cinematography.
Right. And I would say the cinematography looks pretty nice. There's some great shots here.
And it doesn't help that it's a beautiful house, but they also do go around. I think this should have had best costume, but then when they go around Paris, it's all really beautiful.
Yeah. Yep.
And the one thing I really wanted to say is it's interesting that Jackie Kennedy is almost in this movie.
Remind me.
So it is Maria has kind of she was married at one point, Maria was, but then she was also she was married to a man, but then kind of fell in love with this other man named Aristotle.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, let me get his name here. Aristotle Onassis, who
Right.
Jackie Kennedy married 4 or 5 years after Kennedy's death.
That's a funny connection, yeah.
Yeah, so literally at the end of the film, Jackie Kennedy is apparently waiting outside to come in and see Aristotle Onassis.
That's cool. That's kind of cool.
And so when I was looking up the movie, I was like, Aristotle. And then because about near the end of the movie, Maria is in a little coffee shop, and John F. Kennedy comes in and sits down with her, and they have a conversation. And she hints to Kennedy that you need to watch your wife because I think she is having an affair with Aristotle and Onassis. So that got me looking in and everything. So there's a very interesting story there on, this opera singer and her having these connections with the Kennedys and Jackie. And anyways, I found Aristotle Onassis played by Haluk Bilginer. I found that to be one of the better parts of the movie. It was very interesting, but overall, this is kind of like a letdown to be the final.
Yeah, it was very dry and boring for me.
Yeah, very bland.
Very much so. I do hope this director keeps making movies, though. He makes cool and interesting movies, and I've liked his other output. So, don't let this one get you down,
and
Mr.
I do think
director.
It is very. I do.
Definitely. This is what I would call definition of Oscar bait.
So
to a T.
It's basically Mandrax is what she was taking. It's a kind of a Quaalude.
Okay.
Synthetic sedative hypnotic, and it may affect HIV risk. So it was crushed and mixed with cannabis and tobacco by some people.
Wow.
But yeah. So I have a lot of notes on this, so just hold on. She plays a nice woman. She carries herself well. Like, Jolie did such a great job.
Yeah, she does. I remember watching thinking, yep, that's a movie star.
Her hair is great. I said that. But it's a story we've seen before. A tortured artist who takes pills. And then the one thing that I didn't love about the movie is she keeps taking these pills, the doctors and stuff. They want her to see the doctor, but we don't see her sick. Like, we don't see any outward signs of her being ill.
Yeah.
Except for sometimes she's a little maybe like unstable, but
it's hard to tell if that's just her compared to
right.
Because that's kind of her personality anyway.
Yeah. So I gave it 2.5. The movie has a little bit of heart that kind of got me going. Got me a little bit, but other than that, I would say to most people just
I would say to skip it. I gave it 2, and my 2 is for the acting and cinematography. That's kind of really what I thought was cool. I finished my review saying this is pretentious and a slog to get through.
Yeah, my review is even opera fans may find themselves yawning during this paint-by-numbers biopic, elevated by a great performance.
Yeah, that's good. That's a nice little summary.
Yeah, and the one thing I was going to say is, I'm sorry, I know we're long, but I just wanted to ask you, I know there's a lot of controversy around what's the Oscar-nominated movie that there's a lot of
Amelia Perez.
I still think that Zoe Saldana was amazing in that movie. I think she was awesome.
Yeah, I do too.
I keep thinking about her performance, and I think she was just incredible.
Yeah, and I don't think she's gotten wrapped up in it much, so...
No, she just won the BAFTA.
Right.
For Best Actress. So I found... And then Conclave won the BAFTA for Best Picture.
Yeah.
So, which was interesting. So, yeah. So, we're just going to talk about what is coming this weekend. I'll let you do that.
Yeah, so coming this weekend, we are both excited, and I know lots of people are excited for the follow-up from director...
Osgood Perkins.
It's called The Monkey. There was a preview screening for it last Wednesday at the theater I work at, and it got a lot of rave reviews, and so I'm even more hyped for it now. Apparently, it's a dark comedy. Someone said was like they called it a horror comedy. I was like, wow, interesting. Okay, I wasn't expecting that.
Really dark.
So that's The Monkey. I will see that most likely Thursday. I will see that ASAP. Then The Unbreakable Boy, which is what's his name?
Zachary Levi.
Zachary Levi, yeah. Which is your like typical kid and dad movie. It looks not targeted at either Mitch or myself. Maybe you.
It's got the kid has like the breakable bone syndrome, something like that. And
so like we saw Wonder was a new movie with Jacob Tremblay where he had a special helmet. There's another movie. There have been lots of movies like this from my perspective. I haven't seen them. I'm sure they're all fine. I just have no interest in it.
Yeah.
And then Cleaner is also coming, which is a remake of. No, it's not a remake.
Oh, I was like, it's Daisy Ridley and Clive Owen.
Yeah, so listen to this. I actually looked this up because I thought it was going to be the secret movie. So Daisy Ridley, I need to remind us, has had a really bad track record post Star Wars. So the movies that she's been in that I've seen that I would call not good are Murder on the Orient Express, Sometimes I Think About Dying, which was just last year, Chaos Walking, which was terrible, The Bubble, which was a COVID production that was really bad, The Young Woman at Sea was okay, Disney movie, Marsh King's Daughter, really bad, and hold on, there was another one I thought, so maybe not, maybe that's it. So there's like 5 or 6 movies there. Yeah. So that said, I have low expectations for this, but I hope it's good because it looks okay-ish.
I think the only one of those movies I've seen is The Marsh King's Daughter.
Yeah.
Nope, I didn't see it. Never mind.
Damn.
I've just kind of stayed away from what she's been in because you've kind of seen everything.
I know. It's I feel like an idiot. I've seen all of these movies in the theater, and they're all pretty bad to bad.
But I don't think she's a bad actor.
No, and that's the thing. Like, she's not necessarily bad. Like The Young Woman in the Sea, she's good, and I would call that a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it just didn't do well. Disney only released it into like a few 30, 60 theaters, and then it just went to streaming. It was based on a true story about a like prolific young woman swimmer from back in England back in the 50s or something like that. It was interesting. You're right. Like she's good.
Coming off the back of that great movie with Jodie Foster.
Right behind the Jodie Foster one. Yep.
Yes.
No ad.
Yeah, no ad. Yeah.
No ad.
One thing I was just going to say about The Monkey, did you know that in the book, The Monkey, which is based on a short story by Stephen King, the monkey has, like the symbols that you see on most monkeys.
Yes.
Naiad, thank you. And they had to change it because Disney,
of course,
I
know what you're going to say,
from Toy Story 3.
Come on.
And so they had to change it to a drum. But that monkey with the symbols has been around for, like, it used to be a kid's toy in the 60s.
That's what I was going to say. I thought it was really, really old, yeah.
Yeah, but they put a copyright on it after Toy Story 3. And then when they used that monkey, and I mean...
That sucks.
Yeah, it does, because the monkeys almost look identical, except for this one's using a drum in the.
Yeah, and I kind of thought that I didn't know it was different until you just pointed it out. Yeah,
me neither. I didn't really think of it, and then I'm like, oh, I read that. I was just looking at IMDb the other night. So,
all right, anyways, well, that's it.
That is it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We will be back soon. It won't be as long next time because we have a lot to get to before the Oscars. So,
yep.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, y'all. Peace. Hit me with the outro.
Thank you for listening to the Hollywood Persona podcast. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at The Hollywood Persona. Feel free to email the show at thehollywoodpersona@gmail.com and make sure to rate, share, and follow on whatever platform you're listening to our show on. It's the little things that help. Thank you.
And you little shithead. You're staying here.
Okay, stop.